Hi, and welcome to my channel. In 1990, the balance of military power between Iraq and Kuwait was incomparable. Saddam Hussein commanded one of the largest armies in the world, with estimates ranging from 800,000 to 950,000 military personnel. Kuwait, by contrast, had only around 20,000 personnel. When Iraq invaded on 2 August 1990, around 100,000 Iraqi troops were committed in the initial assault, several times the size of Kuwait's entire military. But the conflict had a much deeper historical background, a region that would later become Iraq. The main reason is not oil, it is geography. After Britain entered the war against the Ottoman Empire in 1914, Kuwait was separated from the Ottoman administrative system and placed under British protection. It gained full independence only in 1961. That history helped shape a long-standing Iraqi argument that Britain had artificially separated Kuwait from historic Basra and, by extension, from what would later become Iraq. In 1961, Iraqi Prime Minister Abd al-Karim Qasim declared that Kuwait historically belonged to Iraq, prompting Kuwait to request British military assistance. But why has Kuwait mattered so much to Iraq? Despite its large territory, Iraq has a remarkably short and restricted coastline on the Persian Gulf. Control of Kuwait would give Baghdad a much wider opening onto the Gulf, better access to deep water ports, and far greater freedom for commercial, shipping, and naval operations. Kuwait's enormous oil reserves would of course be valuable, but strategically, access to the sea is one of the central issues. Kuwait today serves as one of the key American military platforms in the Persian Gulf. Major US facilities, including Camp Arifjan and Ali Al Salem Air Base, play an important role in the deployment, supply, and movement of American forces across the region. Now, let's move to the present day. Kuwait today serves as one of the key American military platforms in the Persian Gulf. Major US facilities, including Camp Arifjan and Ali Al Salem Air Base, play an important role in the deployment, supply, and movement of American forces across the region. The Iraqi armed forces number around 200,000 active personnel. In addition, the Popular Mobilization Forces, or Al-Hasht al-Shabi, are estimated at roughly 238,000 personnel and are formally incorporated into Iraq's army. So, taken together, Iraq's regular armed forces and the Popular Mobilization Forces amount to more than 400,000 soldiers. Many Iraqi formations have fought through years of war inside Iraq, including the campaign against ISIS. They have experience in urban combat, drone warfare, and confrontation with American forces. This is where we move into my own hypothesis. If the United States used Kuwaiti territory as a platform for a full-scale attack on Iran, Tehran would not necessarily have to respond only through direct strikes on American bases. One possible form of escalation would be support for allied Iraqi resistance forces immediately across Kuwait's border. In such a scenario, I believe Iraqi resistance forces could capture Kuwait and establish control over its territory within 1 week. I am talking specifically about control on the ground. Air superiority would most likely remain with the United States, and Iraqi forces would remain vulnerable to American airstrikes. But on the ground, considering their numbers, combat experience, and direct land access, I believe such a scenario is possible. If that happened, Baghdad would find itself in an extremely difficult political position. The Popular Mobilization Forces are formally part of Iraq's army, so territory captured by them could de facto come under the control of forces belonging to the Iraqi state. At that point, Baghdad would have little choice but to support what had happened and effectively claim the victory for itself, presenting the capture of Kuwait not simply as an independent operation by individual armed formations, but as a victory for Iraq itself. Baghdad could then theoretically declare Kuwait incorporated into Iraq, and there is a modern background to this issue. Only weeks ago, Baghdad submitted updated coordinates and a revised map of its maritime boundaries, in the Persian Gulf to the United Nations, drawing objections from Kuwait and Saudi Arabia. That does not mean Iraq has renewed a territorial claim to Kuwait, but it shows how sensitive questions of borders and Gulf access remain. So who, in this hypothetical scenario, would actually take Kuwait back? Saudi Arabia would be the strongest Arab military power in the Gulf. But in the scenario we are discussing, it is already tied down by conflict with Yemen. Its ability to open another major front would therefore be limited. Then there is the United Kingdom, Kuwait's historic protector. But today, the entire regular British Army numbers only around 70,000 to 75,000 personnel. That is fewer people than the 90,000 seats in Wembley Stadium. Britain would not be capable of independently mounting a major ground campaign against an Iraqi force numbering more than 400,000. That leaves the United States. And this is where the comparison with 1991 becomes important. The United States of today is not the United States of the Gulf War. The American military is smaller, and just as importantly, its structure is different. The US Army of the late Cold War had spent decades preparing for a possible large-scale conflict with the Soviet Union. It was designed to move heavy formations, armor, artillery, ammunition, and hundreds of thousands of troops. That preparation mattered. In 1990 and 1991, the United States was able to deploy roughly 500,000 American personnel to the region, while the total coalition force reached around 700,000 to 750,000. Today, rebuilding a comparable force would be impossible. There is also a geographical problem. In 1990 and 1991, the United States could spend months safely concentrating troops, vehicles, ammunition, and fuel in Saudi Arabia and elsewhere in the region. In this scenario, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. American bases and infrastructure have almost been destroyed, and concentration areas remain under constant threat from missiles and drones. That makes repeating the 1991 model, building up an enormous force close to the theater of operations over many months, impossible. And now we come to Turkey. In the scenario we are examining, Turkey is the only US ally with the combination of large ground forces, combat experience, and a substantial domestic defense industry that could realistically attempt. In the scenario we are examining, Turkey is the only US ally with the combination of large ground forces. But the key question is not whether Turkey could do it. The key question is whether Turkey would want to. Ankara would be entering a major war with Iraq, potentially facing almost 500,000 Iraqi personnel, while Baghdad could also rely on support from Iran. Turkey has no obvious strategic reason to accept enormous human and economic losses simply to restore Kuwait. Given Ankara's relationship with Baghdad, the opposite scenario cannot be ruled out. Turkey might refuse to intervene and could even provide political or economic support to Iraq. So, in my view, if events unfolded according to the scenario we have just examined, there might simply be nobody left both capable and willing to retake Kuwait by force. And in that case, Kuwait could effectively remain part of Iraq as one of its provinces. And as usual, I leave you to draw your own conclusions. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.